Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola, and today I have a very, very special guest. No need to introduce her. She is the creator of The Bronx is Reading, the editor of Wild Tongues. She's just overall an amazing, well-rounded publishing professional. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. It's Saraciea Fennell. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to chat with you, Paola.
I'm excited too. And as I said, you are just iconic. I love seeing you on Twitter, on Instagram. I love what you're doing in publishing. And yeah, I'm very, very excited. Today, we're here to talk about Wild Tongues Can't Be Tamed, which is an anthology. That cover is so pretty. I cannot.
Isn't it gorgeous? I just stare at it all the time. It's so beautiful.
Yes.
And very colorful. I feel like it's just so on brand. So on brand with what our community represents.
What is Wild Tongues Can't Be Tamed and what prompted it?
Wild Tongues Can't Be Tamed is a wonderful collection of essays and poems that I curated with some wonderful writers. I'm sure you know many of them, like Meg Medina, Lillian Rivera, Evie Zaboy, Elizabeth Acevedo. But then there are several new voices like Khalil Haywood, Zakia and Jamal, and, Janelle Martinez, who are new on the scene and just fabulous. I love them so much. And so aside from the wonderful writers, this collection really tackles different issues within our community. I feel like it's a wonderful collection because it's a conversation starter for some people, right? So if you grew up in the family where certain things were sort of swept under the rug or, put behind a closet, or you just kind of make eyes at each other but don't really talk about those things just because it's like a common rule in the family. These are things we just don't discuss. These essays are saying no, use this as a tool to talk about and the ways that we need to change things within our community. And so I love that as a conversation starter, but I also think that it's a wonderful glimpse into a culture that outsiders don't necessarily get, because I feel like most of the stories that are out there are sort of only one class or one skin tone. For me, it's really important to, highlight other Central American countries aside from Mexico, to also, talk about Black Latinx, Indigenous Latinx, to make sure that the representation is there. And so it was really important to me to make sure that I was covering a wide range of not just experiences within our community, right? Because we're not all the same, but to make sure that there were also parallels. There's just all of these wonderful aspects that just make this collection so rich. I hope that this book just really, finds the reader and the reader takes away what they need from it, because there really is something in there for everyone.
I agree. Speaking about that, because we have poems, we have a song, we have essays, and everybody comes in with their different voice. So what was the editing process like?
Yeah, the editing process was really, really cool. So after I confirmed all the writers, I got to sort of talk to them and say hey, now that you kind of know the theme, right, that I want to do for this anthology, let's talk about what you might want to write about from your life. And so each contributor sort of came up with 3 to 5 pitches that they were interested in writing about, and we either conversed over email or virtually and just chatted about different aspects for each piece that they had pitched to me. What really speaks to me is when you can feel the passion and the emotion when they talk about certain things that have happened to them in their lives. And so I, made sure to do my due diligence to pay attention to the contributors as they were talking about some of the things that they wanted to write about. And I kind of said, this is the thing. And so after that, working with each writer to get their piece to where it needed to be and having them dig a little bit deeper to really get really personal. And so I, would do the editing first, and then the wonderful editors at Flatiron, Sarah and Caroline, just simply wonderful. So it was a wonderful editing experience. I really enjoyed it. I kind of miss it. I wish I could go back and do it again.
Well, Tongues Part 2.
I mean, hopefully folks will like this one enough that we can do a part 2.
Yes. So you also contributed an essay to the anthology. And what was that process like? Do you have any highlights that you would like to share, or maybe some of the challenges that you faced?
The easiest part about editing this anthology was getting to edit the other the other writers. I think the hardest part for me was going back and writing about my childhood, and there were certain instances where I found myself, a little afraid to really open up and go deep. And I feel I do that all the time with my nonfiction though, but that's part of the joy and thrill of the writing. It's very cathartic for me, but also very scary because I'm writing about my life, and then it's going to go out into the hands of other readers. But I feel like with my essay, I talk a little bit about identity and what it was like sort of growing up in a community that was mostly, filled with Black and brown people, and not really knowing what a white community looked like. And then I ended up in foster care, and it was like a whole new world for me. And so it was just really shocking, but it made me realize that there are other people in the world who are probably feeling the same exact way. But also colorism is huge in our community, and so I wanted to make sure that I tackled that, because it's not like we go around striving for whiteness. It's just things that have been passed down to us, and so it's a lot of the stuff that we have to unlearn, which is no secret. Like I said, you can see in many of the essays they're talking about colorism, they're talking about anti-Blackness, they're talking about a lot of different things. And so that's one of the themes that I like about the anthology, is that everyone's essay is so different, but somehow we end up touching on a lot of the same points.
I don't know what to say. Like you left me speechless. That essay was so good. You wrote, "Slowly but surely, I am capturing and low-key recording my findings so that others who have questions won't have to dig so deep to uncover our truth. So much has been lost purposefully over the years." So what have been the highlights and some of the lowlights of trying to get to know where you come from?
Yeah, wow. This is a fantastic question. I think one of the things that was sort of like really, really like low, at least for me when I discovered it, was, when my mom came to this country when she was, a child, they were told not to identify as Black because of the way Black people were treated here in the States. And so it's like, when you think about it, that really hurt, because it's like you've been told from a very young age not to identify this way. And then when you really think about it, it's like, if you are like a Black Latinx immigrant, I will say, who doesn't speak English in this country, it's like a double whammy for you, because if you don't open your mouth, right, they assume, okay, this is another Black person, I'm going to treat them this way. But then you open your mouth and try to communicate, and you're like, I'm speaking in my native tongue, and the native tongue is Spanish. And they're like, wait, what? Like, like the other person's confused, like, oh, this person is Black but also speaks Spanish. And so it becomes like a conundrum there. And so just making sure that like I pass that along, because it's an important history. The other part of it was finding out that, we belong to an indigenous group. Garifuna is both a language and a group of people. And there are people in Nicaragua, Guatemala, Belize, here in the US, how Garifuna people have basically survived for all, basically hundreds of thousands of years, is through assimilation. And so finding that out and asking about that history, and wondering like, why don't we record this stuff? Why aren't there books written by us out there? Where can I find these things? And then just realizing it's oral storytelling. And so I'm like, okay, I have to kind of be the one, if I'm gonna ask the questions and receive the answers, I have to be the one to try and record as much as possible, especially so that I can pass it down to my own children, to the other young people in the family, to make sure that they know, like, you know, this is where you come from. This is our history.
And I think that's really, really, really cool. I applaud you for getting to those questions and starting to record it. So you also wrote, only we can tell the world who we are, but first we must learn where we come from. So do you have any advice for people who are looking to learn more about their roots?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are with your family and you're able to, you know, ask the questions, there's always at least one person in the family who will, like, they're the talker, they know everything. Go to that person, okay, and ask them your questions. If you're someone who, you know, is a little disconnected from your family, I would definitely encourage you to, you know, to do your own research, pull books out of the library, you know, take a trip to, you know, where your family has lived before. Like, sometimes you have to immerse yourself and then kind of like experience it, and then you can go back to the family and say, like, oh yeah, you know, well, I went to Honduras and this is what I found. Because once they know, like, oh well, you already been there, then they'll start to open up a little bit and can provide you with some insight. But if you're someone who's like, you know, Marco Shiro, who was adopted, you kind of need to find your community. And I think that is something that's really special, because you can find community anywhere. So sometimes it doesn't even necessarily have to be family. It could be friends, you know, and if you want that closeness, or if you want to experience that, confide in your friends, you know, build the community. And the last thing I'll say is, it's okay for you to change. Okay, as long as you know, keep in mind the history of these words, the history of these terms, the history of the people. I think that's really important, because like I said, once you know and you have the knowledge, you can define yourself however you want. And so I usually tell people, you know, some of these terms, some of these words can be very dangerous. And it really is important for you to know the meaning behind it. You know, I'm being very strategic by saying I am a Black Honduran to let people know, because Latinx now is used as a catch-all term. And we have to be careful with these things. And the way we can do that, like I said, is by knowing the history. And so I hope people will try and learn their family history and figure out how they want to, you know, navigate the world, how they want to identify in the world. Because you, right, you, the individual, can do that. It's up to you. Don't let anyone put you in a box.
I love that. That's very, very powerful. If you could contribute with another essay to the anthology, what would you discuss?
If I can contribute another essay to this anthology, I would probably talk about hair. Hair is so important to us, whether it's the hair on our head, you know, the body hair. Like I would write something about hair. I think that's probably the only thing that's kind of missing from this. We touch on it a little bit in some of the essays, but I feel like, can you imagine an entire anthology just about hair from all of the various different countries?
Well, tongues part two.
It would be a good prompt, I think.
Yes, I would read that. So tell us about your future projects. I know you announced something earlier in August.
I'm working on another set of essays, so more nonfiction, and I've been working on this Honduran YA fantasy, I feel like, for 7 years at this point. Has it been? I think it's been about 7 years. Those are the two things that I'm working on right now.
That's so exciting. I'm looking forward to more nonfiction by Saraciea. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Saraciea. I loved chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a wonderful discussion. I'm so happy you loved all of the essays in the book, and that you already have some favorites.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you everyone else for watching. Don't forget to check the description below so that you can add Well Tongues Can't Be Tamed on Goodreads and that you can buy it. I will also leave Saracia's links down below so that you can check her out and support her in all of her endeavors. Shout out to Nikia who helped coordinate this meeting. And yeah, if you haven't already and you'd like to, go ahead and hit subscribe, and I'll see you in another one. Bye.